do things in the private sector can't happen in the public sector, but nevertheless, there are some learnings that we can get. In fact, in one of the organizations that I was involved with, if on a scale of 0 to 10, your performance is evaluated at 4.5, automatically you know it's departure lounge. You don't even have to ask, you don't have to, you know you must pack up your bags and go, because you're below par. And if you are at 8 out of 10, you know that Father Christmas is here. And everybody works hard so that they're at 8, 9 out of 10. 4.5, pack your bags, don't even tell your colleagues, pack your bags, and you go. So, but whether you can have that kind of thinking in the public service, I doubt, but nevertheless, there's something in there about performance evaluation. Not an automatic 13th check. When I was signing my contract here, there's some way it talked about 13th check. I said, what is this? You still have 13th check? What 13th check? And so this is a bonus. I said, bonus what? How can you determine bonus before I've done evaluation? Can't you bonus again? You need bonus, can't you? Anyway, fortunately, that's not my job as minister. I end at Lord's job. Okay.
Hi, Minister. My name is Bulelani from SABC.
You get a chance. We didn't get a chance to ask you.
You're coming now. No, you're coming after this one, Pretoria.
The issue of this government wage bill, would part of the discussions include a retrenchment? Because that's essentially what Labour would like clarity on. Would that include retrenchment? Thanks.
What I was saying is that we need to have a common lay of the land. What are the issues that we're trying to deal with? The headline is the wage bill. What drives it? How can we reduce it? And reducing it does not necessarily mean retrenchment. That's what I was trying to explain. I know you're asking it so your voice can be heard in me answering, but I've answered that question actually. And that you have a common understanding. Again, the Minister of Public Service and Administration is going to talk about this because she knows these things much better than me. As the political head of the Treasury, I know that there's a problem with the wage bill and that the recent wage increases are not budgeted for, and therefore the provincial administrations will have to find the money from their budgets, and that is a serious problem. Okay, this is not nice to say. If you're looking at numbers, for example, this is not nice. Please don't burn me at the stake for this. Every year people die. They include people in the civil service. The question is, do you replace all of them who have died, or do you let it go? Sounds bad, what I've just said, but it's a reality. It's painful, this thing, but it's a reality. People resign. In hundreds of people resign from the civil service every year. The question is, how do you manage that process? If there's just an automatic replacement, which doesn't take account at these levels, which are the higher compensation levels, then it's a problem. But at the same time, you have to be very careful that you don't let people go from the civil service who are technically competent, have experience, and you need them. So to answer your question, I think when you start the conversation, you must never rule out anything. But at the same time, you must not be clappy about it. You must be open-minded. Yeah? Lateral thinking. That's, do you know an clappy? Yes. Blinkers that you put on the, but it's not nice in English when you say blinkers. It's clappy. It claps the oors. Okay, Pretoria.
Hi, Minister. My name is Justin Brown. I'm a journalist with City Press. Just wanted to ask you regarding your comments regarding SARS. You say regarding SARS that the leadership team must be strengthened. Hoping I might have put a direct question regarding the Nugent's inquiry recommendation that Tom Mboweni be removed. Do you have a view on that? And do you have a view on whether other things that need to be done to fix SARS? And I just want to also ask you a question regarding Denel. Denel apparently ran out of money or was in a very difficult financial position. Any plans regarding Denel's financial position? Thanks a lot.
Oh, I'm happy you didn't ask me about the SABC. The situation at SARS is that the organization has been weakened substantially. Some of the investigative capacity of SARS have been removed or weakened. So, for example, the investigative unit would, amongst others, focus on the rich people who are trying to avoid tax by using all kinds of methods. That capacity has been denuded. So there's to be rebuilt fairly and within the law and everything else like that. Because you need to improve this collection capacity. So the acting commissioner, I wish he was here, but he's not. He has said to me that we're having to employ people. Some might come back who have left, or we might deliberately go on our knees and ask them to come back to rebuild this capacity. The Nugent Commission was appointed by the president. So details about whatever action steps will be taken based on that report, they have to be directed at the president's office. Incidentally, as it turns out, the law was changed inadvisedly to make the commissioner to be appointed by the president, no longer by the Minister of Finance. So for that one, it's very nice for me to kick for touch. It was ill-advised what they did, but I was not in the government. So and there's the next, Bedingeko, and there's the next two. Okay. Was there another one you asked? No, that's all. Yeah.
Denel.
Oh, Denel. The Minister of Public Service and Administration hasn't raised the matter with me, if I recall. So I'll wait to hear from him, and the officials haven't told me anything about Denel. So I'll wait to hear. But now that you have raised it, maybe we should just sniff around ourselves and find out directly from the minister what's happening. Maybe next time we have a conversation, I will have something educated to talk to you about. Anything else, Pretoria?
Yeah. Yes, Minister John Fraser again. I see you're looking nice and relaxed now you've done your speech. You've lost your jacket, your collar's undone at the top. You're looking reasonably happy. So I'd just like to ask how it was. How was your maiden speech? Are you happy you're no longer a maiden? Secondly, how much of that speech was actually yours and how much did you inherit?
Sure.
And finally, you had said in the past you would never take this job, but you took this job.
I explained. No, but the latter part of your question, I have been at pains to explain that I actually did not want this job, but I was doing very well in the private sector. Thank you very much. Well paid, more than well paid, comfortable. I was free from Thursday to Monday. I had more time with my lambs and my dogs and my chickens and my cabbage and my spinach, and And there were other things growing in my farm, which I chopped them before the Constitutional Court decision. Maybe now I should allow them to grow. They were not for my consumption. It was my caretaker who I found that he had been planting certain greenies which are not allowed at the time. So I was doing very well, thank you very much. And the president approached me and asked me to do this. I can tell you that I resisted this to the best of my ability. But he used to be the General Secretary of the National Union of Mine Workers. So he out-negotiated me. And so once he had done that, and I had agreed to the role, and then I came down here to Cape Town, I had forgotten this. They make you sign an oath of office. And that thing is quite onerous. I'm going to do the following, won't disclose anything, will abide by the Constitution, will discharge my responsibilities, will work, and so on and so on. So once you have signed that thing, no matter how grumpy you are, you need to forget your grumpiness and start working. And that's what we're doing now. And really, there's a lot of work to do now. I hope it's the last time I'm asked this question. There's a lot of work to do. I have to reconnect and adjust to a different situation. I have to learn to read printed copies of thick cabinet files again. But hopefully we'll go to a board pad situation where we don't have to print documents. We can work off our laptops and our iPads and other tablets. So you have some kind of e-government, which I gather they had started, but it got stalled somewhere. And this always happens. If somebody thinks, oh, goodness me, I might lose my job about this, they'll introduce security concerns, even when there's none, and so on. So there we are. We're now here. We have a job to do. I have an interesting deputy minister to work with. Works hard, too much energy, laughs even when the situation is difficult. I hope you didn't gain this laughing thing from any other head of state before. So I'm quite certain it did not get infected. So yeah, we have to go on and do our work as much as we can. About the maiden speech and why I'm sort of less formal looking, is because it's too hot in Cape Town today. For some reason, it's just too hot for me. And I was sweating so badly when I was on the podium there. The president even said, drink some water. It was so bad. But I also noticed something. I was wearing a wrong suit for the day. So, but it went very well, I think. Little bit disappointed by Musi Maimane because he kept on heckling me unnecessarily. So I'll meet with the young man and ask him what was the problem. He needs to learn to respect old people. But also it's a maiden speech. So everybody's supposed to be quiet. You can clap, but you can't heckle. Those are basic Queensberry rules of politics. And that even the EFF didn't heckle. Did you know how well behaved they were? They'd never heckled. They sat there, they sort of mild clapped, which was okay. So they upheld the highest standards of the Queensberry rules, not the DA. So it was fine. Thank you, sir. I really enjoyed myself. I think we don't have any substantive questions, right? Huh?
Oh. From here, from Victoria.
Yes.
Minister, your predecessor, a year ago, said there would be a list of asset disposals ready in March this year. I haven't seen that list. Can you update in terms of what's happening in terms of asset disposals, because that would help to close your revenue gap? And then if you can address the situation in terms of ghost workers. I'm currently based in Makanda, and there's a scandal about ghost workers at the Makanda municipality. If you can say if that's prevalent or that's an isolated incident. And then last question is, how many hours sleep did you get last night?
Last night I slept, I think, the usual number of hours, which means usually I sleep about between 1 and 2 a.m. and wake up about 7 in the morning. That's the usual thing. It's a disease I picked up from university, and it refuses to go away. So that's why you should never call me before 8 o'clock in the morning. It's going to be a big fight. So it was normal hours. No problem at all. But besides, I knew that we have a difficult story to tell, but we had crafted the presentation already, and we were all happy about it. I hope you know how this the budget statement is written. The documentation has been worked on, obviously, for a while. The figures and so on have been worked on for a while. The question is, how then do you do the presentation? So on Saturday, we then started the process of writing the speech. We have a conversation. The staff, the senior staff go and write some drafts depending on which parts of the National Treasury they are. They go and write up what they think should be in the speech. Somebody puts it together. So the initial draft is what you can call a federation of ideas from the different divisions. And then gradually we begin to integrate. By Sunday, we have a sort of broadly integrated speech, but still federal in nature. And you can tell that this was not written by one person. This is sort of coupled up here and there and so on. By Monday, we have a reasonably integrated speech beginning to flow. And by Tuesday, I then asked them to leave me alone, and I take a red pen and start editing and sorting out conceptual issues the way I understand them, and making sure that the fiscal stance remains the same the way the numbers are. By Wednesday morning, 8:30, I have to go to the cabinet and present what we're going to present in the afternoon. And if there are any new ideas, indeed this morning there was one or two things, we'll then integrate that into the final speech. So that's done, finished. So now it works. I saw somebody said, but this speech was written by Nene a long time ago. That's a lot of rubbish. It's nothing like that. So people must understand how the process works. And over the years, I'm sure you know how the process works. So the assets, I've heard as we've been having these conversations over the past couple of days that there is a list of non-core assets. I'll be looking around for it and to get to know about it. But whatever non-core assets exist somewhere, they are covered in what we refer to as the reconfiguration of state assets. It covers everything within the state sector. But you know, I sort of remember in 1994, I think Princess Stella Strau was a Minister of Public Works, Enterprises, Works or Enterprises. I think Jeff Radebe was Public Works, was it? Yes.
She was Enterprises.
And then she was Enterprises. At the Public Works Minister Jeff Khadev, I just recall this, that we agreed on the identification of all state assets and non-core assets in 1994. So when we come back to the cabinet in 2018, people still talking about the same thing. It feels like reincarnation a bit. It's just like you died and you came back. It's like when we watch Generations. You know? So I just want to find out if it's different to the one. So it's a reincarnation. You know, sometimes when you walk in the street and you feel like, I've been here before. So you are a reincarnate. Anyway, okay, Cape Town. Thank you. Miriam?
Thank you. Okay, I had a question that was kind of related to the last one. We have been hearing about the sale of non-core assets for each of the last few years at these presentations. And I noticed that in your speech, when you were talking about the reconfiguration of SOEs, you mentioned the involvement of the private sector many times, and you emphasized it. Now, could this possibly include some form of privatization? Although that's kind of an anti-holy cow. And my other question was about tax increases, because normally the MTBPS makes no mention of taxes whatsoever. But in this one, it said in the document that there would be no increases in major tax instruments at this time, although fiscal risks are elevated. Firstly, I don't really know what instruments means there, but I just wondered, how long do you think that this can this actually really be avoided when the government, when the Treasury wants so much to restrain, maintain fiscal discipline, and perhaps get the budget deficit back to a 3% handle?
Well, I don't know what they meant by that, but so for the full implementation of the NHI, for example, you need to find additional tax revenues. And the likely place where you're going to find it is VAT, probably 2 percentage points higher to fund, because there's nothing for Mahala. Doesn't exist, Mahala thing. To pay for something, you must first get something from Paul to pay Peter.
Would that be politically acceptable given the outcry of the one percentage point?
I'm just saying, if you want to pay, I'm just giving an example. I'm not saying that's what is going to happen. I'm just saying mathematically, you must raise the revenue from somewhere. And the natural place where you're going to get it, because you're going to get it from company tax. You won't get it from pay as you earn. Where are you going to get it from? You have to get it from value-added tax, unless if there are other mechanisms where you can get this from. But we have to do whatever we do. We have to do it in such a way as the overall tax burden of the country doesn't keep rising. In situations where there's so much wastage of what currently exists, so we have to be very careful about that. I suspect that's what they meant, but I think you should ask them, the Treasury officials, the revenue side of the story. Another one? I'm tired, actually. Yes, ma'am.
The rand weakened and bond yields spiked following your speech today. I was just wondering what you make of that reaction, and also if this means that the markets are quite worried about the potential for a credit rating downgrade. Does this mean that we're going to potentially see stricter measures come the February budget review?
I suspect some people in the market might have misread that section of the speech about tightening monetary policy in the US and its possible meaning or implication for emerging market currencies, spreads, and the carry trade. But I think on second reading of the speech, I think they'll come down a bit to understand what we're trying to make. Secondly, they were probably second guessing the ratings agencies. I don't know what the view is. Some of my colleagues are having a conversation with the ratings agencies now. We'll get a sense about how they feel about the story. But if once the markets look overall at what is contained in the statement, I think they'll get a sense of a balance. I think they'll get a sense of balance. I think also they might have been unhappy about the consolidated deficit number. But again, now that we've explained why that is the situation, I suspect they'll come down a bit. It's a tough world. It's a tough world. But it would also benefit from you guys not throwing uncooked stories, I'm sure, into the wire services.
Thank you, Minister. Can we just take 2 last questions and close? We'll take Reuters and Business Day.
Good day, Minister. It's Mfoneko from Reuters News. Just considering the large discrepancy between the kind of growth that is needed and the kind of growth that we're likely to achieve and the implications on revenues, is it fair to say that austerity measures are now needed to get us back on a sustainable path? Thanks.
I would think that the best that we've thought about for now is what we've presented. And since there will be there's no planned any other statement for any austerity or other measures, we should live with what we have now. This is our thinking of what needs to be done. So I can't speculate on anything else. It's what we have. And we'll walk along with the situation up to the February budget. That February would know whether there are any major developments which might warrant us changing our minds. But for now, this is where we are, and this is what we have to deal and live with. And why don't you look at it like this? That, for example, the 20 billion or so that's going to go to the VAT refunds is also actually a stimulus to the economy. Companies, people will have an additional amount of money in their hands, depending on where it is going to go. So that's good. The allocations which we have made to the package of measures to stimulate the economy is positive, I think. And the relief that we're providing to people, was it cake flour? What is it?
It's cake flour and bread flour.
Cake flour, bread flour.
Sanitary.
I don't know the difference between this. I wanted somebody to take me to the shop to show me the difference. But the president said I mustn't worry, he's going to take me to the shop himself to show me. That hopefully gives some relief if the consumer really does receive that benefit. Because more often than not, the shops don't reduce the prices. They just proceed with the situation as is. Okay, last one.
Hi, Governor.
or Minister Lucanio from Business Day. I also wanted to ask about holy cows, about cows, should I say. With SAA, do you regard an airline as a core government asset? And given the constraints that we have, that you've actually detailed, how long or how can you keep just throwing money at it? When is that going to stop? What is the limit? And
my answer is SAA is not a holy cow at all. It's something that Minister Pravin Gordhan, actually no, it's not Gordhan, it's Pravin Gordhan. That's his proper name, Gordhan. Gordhan is a shepherd. That's what it means. So he is looking into this matter of SAA almost in the manner I described. And to say if we need to close it down, we should. After all, who travels on SAA is not the working class. You're better off making sure that your trains, which are used by the working class, work properly, and that the Rea Vaya works properly, My City works properly. I'm not quite sure about whether My City transports the working class, but the Rea Vaya in Joburg most certainly transports the working class. Yeah, My City. Do they go into the townships? They go.
That's why you're giving them more money so they can go.
To the city. The township, they do. My city. I know Rea Vaya does. Rea Vaya, I can even go to Vilagazi Street. They do.
They do at a very small scale.
A small scale. In Joburg, Rea Vaya goes more into Soweto. So I can go to Vilagazi Street for lunch using Rea Vaya and so on. Or when you go to football matches at FNB, you can use Rea Vaya and so on. So those are working classic. You don't fly there. So I think the minister, I'm sure, will look into all these possibilities, but it's not a holy cow, I think. And when you talk to him, he's going to explain to you some of the difficulties which they face there. And the deputy minister here knows what the difficulties are because he was in the portfolio committee that dealt with public enterprises. And so on. So no, it's not a holy cow, I think. But as we indicated in the statement, the domestic routes are profitable. Some of the international routes are profitable, but not all. So they might have to consider, they must do a reconfiguration. And as we said, the minister says that they'll come back to him before the end of the year with some credible plan. I hope it's not another plan of a plan of a plan. Because I've had these SAA plans before. Consultants plan, turnaround strategy, We've had it before, so we hope it's different this time. And I suppose in January you must hold us accountable to say, has anything happened? But again, it's not the National Treasury that is responsible for that department. It's the Department for Public Enterprises. Right? We can only ask and push and cajole and so on. But you can burn us at the stake for that. I think you should go and write your stories. Don't tell them that I was sweating. Thanks for spending the day with us. Thank you very much.
Thanks. Thank you, colleagues.
Thank you.
Did you do the rating stages?
No, we met.
All right, so that was the Finance Minister Tito Mboweni facing the media soon after his medium-term budget statement, which he presented earlier this afternoon. And yes, he took his jacket off and loosened his tie because he says it's unusually hot in Cape Town this afternoon. But he seems very comfortable in his job. He seems to have taken to his office quite quickly and responding and answering the media questions there, and even finding time to make a few jokes.
Very humorous, we must say, and of course emphasizing, because many people, even economists, have been saying that no, the speech had been written already by the former minister, and he says that is a lot of rubbish. That's what he said.
All right, well, we'll see what comes out, but he did say that things need to be reconfigured, particularly the state-owned enterprises, that there are no holy cows, as it were. So we might see things shift, the sands shift quite a bit around some of these SOCs. Let's find out in the coming days exactly what those changes are. SAA was one of them that was mentioned, and it looks like some routes might disappear. And in fact, you know, we might even lose some of these state-owned enterprises, saying that we need to focus on those areas that concern the working class and the majority of the people, such like things as Rea Vaya. But that's Minister Tito Mboweni will continue to unpack this, and programs that follow as well, like Full View, will also continue to unpack that.
All right, and I suppose good afternoon, and thank you so much if you have just joined us. We're telling your story, as this, of course, is the third and the final hour of SA Today. My name is Palesa Chubisi.
And me, I'm Peter Ndoro. Now, in news just in from the United States, media is reporting that the U.S. Secret Service has intercepted suspect packages identified as potential explosive devices that were sent to the homes of former President Barack Obama and